Tom, it's an absolute privilege to be invited into your studio today, to actually see you doing, see you paint firsthand. How are you?
Yeah, good. Just a bit stuck on this one, but often that happens. But yeah, it's always interesting to at least observe what I'm doing, because sometimes it's very inefficient. But we're getting there on this one, I think.
Have you got a name for this?
Yeah, that's more like it. Just because I arrived at this image in the centre quite early on, and it was probably, sometimes it can be the most effective and almost better than it is now. So I came up with that immediately, because I just felt it was rested. But the artist in me wants to push it a little bit more and just figure out what else I can do. Stretch the colour, stretch the composition, and maybe remove most of it, but I think that's the learning process in it. And maybe that I want just more for the painting, just because I use it as an output. I don't want it to be over so soon as well, so that triumphs.
How long would it take you then to paint something like this?
Yeah, so I mean, I paint in layers, so it's going to be anywhere between, it sits here for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, even sit up to a month and a half.
Right.
And then when it becomes a little bit more kind of favourable, I'll move on to something else. But they just resolve their own, they just resolve themselves. I might paint for 5-10 minutes in the morning, I might be in it for 4 hours. I might be passing and just come in and add another colour, and it's just different days, different times, different moods.
I was just going to say,
so that's a stamp it, then a stamp it, and I maybe Tuesday, Thursday, April, March. It's just
and that all
everywhere.
I guess that all highlights on your mood, because we were talking before about ego. Ego is a really interesting subject, and I think, what is ego? How do you feel about ego?
Yeah,
painting?
ego. I think ego is something that you kind of have to remove when you're painting, because ultimately, if you're going to get into that flow state that kind of decorates the canvas well, you have to forget about, in my essence, Tom Burbidge. You have to forget about who you are. You have to become the tool, like anything. You have to just be the task. So that has to be removed, and I think, inadvertently, I think that's perhaps what I'm addicted to. It's exiting world life. It's that escapism, and then the paintings actually tell me more about me as they kind of are finished, because that is ultimately the most natural mark, and I don't get these images as much as you don't get them.
No.
And in understanding them, you understand yourself without any distractions.
Yeah, and
so
I think
it's
also,
an overspill.
Yeah, I think also as well, escapism can be drugs, it can be drink, it can be food, but at least in your natural habitat, it's painting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is now. Yeah.
It is now.
Yeah, I think you need something. This is why I spoke about hobbies earlier on. But everything has a cusp, has a limit, and I think you come to a point where I don't want to paint anymore. I'm sick to death sometimes of what's in front of me, because I've hit my limit. I love painting, but there's no more I can do that day. Obviously, you have to let the paintings dry as well, but you really do empty your mind when you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's quite exhausting, actually.
Mentally?
Yeah, and that's what I need at times. I need to be kind of drained for that last kind of measure. But yeah, mentally, not so physically, but definitely mentally, especially when they're not going as well, and they're not really navigating towards something better. There's this fight kind of sensation.
Why do you think that is sometimes? Is that because that's your mental state?
Yeah, and that's what, sometimes it can make a collection, or it can make an image that if you're going through some sort of stress or feud, or you're particularly busy, my images will become busy and erratic, and sometimes they become more still. My depopulated collection was during pandemic, was during the lockdown. I spent a lot of time in it, and everything was very overly thought about and precise, and I felt stuck, so the images became stuck, but I actually liked them. That became the value. They became very static to look at and overly kind of organised, when I wanted these to be completely unorganised. And then later kind of just select, so I delete areas, I build up layers, and I said this before, I might put 6 bits of blue down, 6 bits of colour down, and then only 2 of them stay, as I kind of look back at the mapping and realise what balances well, what colours work, what doesn't work. Complementary colours here, green doesn't always necessarily work with blue because it's there.
It might
works.
work in a different
If it's
area.
down here, it wouldn't work. You use obvious kind of colours that lift each other up, and then I always try and squeeze in colours that don't particularly work, just to kind of learn as an artist and create that unusual. You just arrive unusually in a piece where it's a surprising kind of collection of colours. I don't really do common palettes. You know, I could do things that were just all blue, and it creates a really effective image, and you know, tones of purple, and for me that just looks like wallpaper. And it's just obvious. It's kind of too obvious. It's too successful. You know, I like trying to cram in colours, and that's kind of where my style is birthed.
But you know what? Just looking at your style and your creativity and your amazing art, if you couldn't stop painting, how would that make you feel?
Well, I'd feel lesser. I'd feel like I feel like a footballer would feel if he had a lifelong injury and ended his career. You feel like lesser of a person immediately. I'd feel panicked.
Yeah.
I'd have to move the loss of painting into something else. I'd have to find that same therapy, that same relaxation in something else, and I think that would be a challenge. So I'm lucky that painting is
your therapy, I guess.
Yeah, but people ask me, especially in the chair if I'm cutting hair. When I'm cutting hair, do you meditate? Or anyone asks me, do I meditate? And I say yeah.
Yeah, but that...
I don't need to sit down and stretch and get into a zone and deconstruct my thoughts. This is what this is. So,
but artists...
this is my meditation, this is my therapy. And that's why you should always do it. You don't have to be good. You have to just be able to get to a flow state in anything. Whatever that might be, you got to just find something that takes away life from you. You just become time.
Thank you very much, Tom. You've really given me a great insight to your journey.
Thank you.